Okay, welcome to an overview of the AP Stylebook. I'm Professor Jason Martin. I'm going to break down AP Style into 6 different modules here, some short lectures to break it up. You can follow along with the lecture and then see the associated PowerPoint slides, and hopefully this is going to cover the main introduction, some of the main topics that we'll cover with AP Style, and then we'll continue to discuss these as the class goes on. First of all, you can see in the Stylebook key, when you first open into the first couple pages after a forward, a table of contents, a summary of what's new. In the 2015 version, you'll see Stylebook key, and it essentially breaks down for you from top to bottom bolded entry words, and these are going to be for the main listings in alphabetical order. Remember, there's special sections for some areas, but they're in boldface and they represent the accepted word forms unless otherwise indicated. You got some text that explains like a definition, like a dictionary entry, and then examples of correct and incorrect usage. Some of the entries just simply give you the correct spelling, hyphenation, capitalization, so you can double check it. Some of them give you further context, like you can see for airport. Entries like Alabama are going to give you abbreviation to indicate the correct abbreviation. You can cross-list that, and we'll talk about that when we get to abbreviations. And it says C state names. So you can continue to look in different areas and double-check these things as you move forward with it. So the Stylebook key is really a handy way to give you an introduction to what the entries look like. So here's how you can begin to look the Stylebook, and the main thing to keep in mind is always to look it up. If it's a word that you're not sure of, if it's capitalized, if it looks unusual, you're going to want to double check everything just like you would to verify information as a reporter. So the first thing you can do is look up the term through the alphabetical listings. It starts with A, goes through Z. If it's not in there, check one of the other ones. It might be in food, it might be in sports, social media, if it's applicable to any of those, business, religion. There's several different additional sections. You may want to also look it up by category. So if it's not listed by its own term by itself, it may be under abbreviation or numeral or some category like that. New in 2015 is an index in the back. This is making it even more powerful and searchable guide, so you can go back and look up where there are multiple references to your term. If it's in the index, it's going to tell you where there's 2 or 3 places to check, so you can be sure everything is spick and span on that. The definitions will often include examples of proper usage, and that's a great way to see them in context. It's also, frankly, a way that I'm going to pull some of the quiz questions. They'll come right out of examples from the book, so if you've been looking at some of the common entries, you're going to familiarize yourself and begin to kind of make it second nature, so that you're not only looking things up, but once you get attuned to the ones you use all the time, you'll be able to look those up. And some of them won't need to because you'll know them right away. And again, you can cross-reference a lot of these entries. So my best advice is look up every capitalized word, any specific term, anything that's tricky, a bit of grammar. There's punctuation in here, and we're going to break those down in future modules and lectures on this. So just continue, look it up. Look up almost every word. You're mostly going to be doing in this class short 300, 400, 500 or so word stories. And if you take out articles and simple words that you know you have down, let's say there's maybe 100 words that would fall into this that you need to look into. Taking a few seconds to look all those up is going to ensure that you have everything absolutely correct. Okay, so there's many ways to use the Stylebook. When you capitalize or abbreviate, let's say you're interviewing a professor and you're going to use it. For example, you can go to P and look under professor, and it's going to tell you there. Lowercase before a name, don't abbreviate, don't use on second reference. So in addition to titles, which we'll go over, you can look up the specific entry. It's also got things like side by side. If you want to talk about 2 things that are stacked together, like perhaps books, do you use hyphens between? What are the situations in which you use them? Again, in 2015 book, you can go to page 243, and you can see if you're using side by side as a verb, we don't hyphenate. If you use an adjective to modify a noun, you would hyphenate. So it gives you a good handle and introduction to the kinds of range of things that the Stylebook covers. What's in here exactly? It's again going to go alphabetically for a few hundred pages with the main section Stylebook listings before we get to page 296, and there's a guide to punctuation, and we'll hit the highlights of that in a future module. There's a statement of the news values, and we'll talk about this a little bit in class in terms of how the AP, both as a Stylebook for the mass communication industry, journalism and PR, is kind of the main style to use, but it's also a handbook for the people that work for the Associated Press. There's a briefing very briefly on media law, so it's got the basics on that. It's got social media guidelines, and then again, remember there's special sections, so don't assume because it's not in the main section, it's not in one of these. It may cross-reference, it may not. Have a little bit of awareness of how to continue to delve in and look up things in the style book. And again, the new index for this year begins on page 515. So what's new and updated in 2015? Well, there's a little summary again page at the front of the book. The index is added. There are new entries on things like suicide, global warming, Crimea. So things that come into the news in that year which weren't emphasized before, get in there. Crimea, Ebola, Boko Haram, Islamic State, and then some they just debate and want to revise some of it. So for profanities, obscenities, vulgarities, use of that changes. Some of the terms have moved from social media to the main section. The social media section is expanded. So again, if you have a term that may apply to social media, and be sure you're using it stylistically correctly, I would look in both sections to double check. Also check that index. And also expansions in areas like the food and fashion section. So particularly if you're interested in that beat or doing stories of that nature, you're going to want to look up terms in those sections. New sports entries too as well. So for those of you interested in sports, be real aware to be on point with that. And again, you're going to use this for the assignments, but you want to kind of get it down and internalize this style as a kind of language you use. So using it even on Twitter and social media, and people are going to peek in and look and see how you use social media and what you share as a journalist. You want to use correct AP style. It's a good signal that you're committed to the professionalism and you're learn how to become a journalist. So that concludes the first introduction here, and we'll be back for more breaking down some other sections and preparing you for the quiz. Thanks.